Next, we're going to hear about the ecosystem approach to network monetization. Of course, why are we all here in this room to think about new ways to present networks to customers? It's to generate new revenue streams, right? So I think this is a really key point for all of us to think about. And to talk to us about that, we have Stephanie Ormston from AT&T, where she is the Assistant Vice President of Digital Services Integration. And she's going to give a presentation, and then we'll have a little sort of fireside chat after that. So Stephanie, please.
Thank you very much. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Ormston, and I'm here representing AT&T. And I'm going to share with you today a little bit about how we are approaching ecosystem development within AT&T. And I'm really happy that this session happens to be on day 2, because what I'd like to do today is start to tie together some of the themes that we've heard in the last couple of days of the conference, so that we can give some more tactical and kind of tangible approaches to activating that ecosystem. And so, as we heard yesterday, AT&T has really been on this NAS journey, I think even before we really knew what NAS was. We've been approaching the network in the way and approaching the network build-out in a way that we can get to a highly programmable, disaggregated, and open network. In the past few years, we've really honed our focus in on building out a multi-gig fiber network and a scaled 5G network. Our fiber network, we built out 60,000 miles of fiber, or close to 100,000 kilometers of fiber in 2022. And I love how that statistic actually gets more compelling when I convert it into the metric system. And then, of course, our 5G network covers almost 290 million potential customers. And so within that, there's a lot of opportunity, and we're building that in a way that is more programmable than ever before. In addition to that, we're increasing our adoption of the cloud. So not only are we moving the 5G core elements into the cloud, we're also modernizing and migrating our IT applications into the cloud as well. And we're doing that in such a way that we can start to break apart some of those systems and some of those legacy applications into a more microservices-based approach that is built with an API-first mindset. So you take all of those things together and you add to that the external and the industry and market pressures that we're seeing. Pascal shared a slide yesterday that talked about the different ways that we could approach the NAS market and the different valuations, ranging anywhere from $75 billion to almost $150 billion. The network API market, in and of itself, is valued at over $20 billion. So all of that to say, however you define it, it's an incredibly big opportunity, and it's not something that we, can sit back and just ignore. That plus consumer expectations, which we all know are increasingly high and a much higher bar. Customers are looking for highly personalized solutions, and they don't want to pick up the phone, and they don't want to wait 60 days for their network to be provisioned. So you take all of that together, and what's an operator to do? And that's where we believe we build an ecosystem. And the way that we define an ecosystem and the way that I think about an ecosystem might be a little bit different, so I'll kind of talk through these components. So the first part that we see that's incredibly important is the internal ecosystem within the enterprise. We are a very big enterprise at AT&T, and so I'm talking about all of our different product divisions. I'm talking about our technology teams, our sales teams, our PR teams, our communications teams. Even HR needs to understand what we're doing and be aligned towards our vision. I'm also talking about our channel partners. So these are the folks who can bring us to novel distribution models, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Service providers, but in this instance, I really mean more SaaS providers, third-party software and solutions providers who can bring capabilities to the ecosystem that maybe we don't want to play in and maybe just isn't our strong suit. And then finally, operators, our fellow operators, and the industry forums like the MEF who love and care for them. So I'm going to share a couple of lessons that we've learned along the way as we've been on this journey. So our first lesson, existing assets have value. A lot of what we talk about is we talk about these legacy IT systems and these legacy stacks, and legacy gets a really negative connotation. But I believe that our legacy systems are what got us here today. So surely there must be something in there that we can take and that we can use. And so that's what we're doing at AT&T, is we're doing an inventory of what is within those legacy systems that has value. What are the APIs that we've built out? Because we're no stranger to APIs. We've been doing this for decades. What are the APIs that generate the most demand, that generate the most calls? And how do we modernize them? And how do we take them and scale them to support the future needs of the business? That's what we've done with a number of our resale APIs. So right now we're taking the APIs that support our mobile virtual network operator business, we're mapping them to TM Forum APIs, and we're pushing them into a cloud-native scaled platform. It's also a lot of the work that we've done with the LSO Sonata APIs, is how can we take those, how can we standardize them and scale them out to a broader distribution channel and broader partners across the globe. So within that, those APIs are really just the connectors, and that's kind of where we talk about the NAS piece. But where it gets really interesting for us, and sort of my role with AT&T, is to think about what adds extra value. So where do APIs become more than just connectors? Where do they add incremental value to the customer and to the ecosystem? So that's our next lesson, is product development applies to network APIs. I think we get a little caught up sometimes when we talk about APIs, because really what we mean is that APIs are actually just a way to expose capabilities. And so what we really talk about is what are the new network capabilities that we want to bring to the market? And what are the new capabilities that we want to introduce to the customer to make the customer journey, to make the customer experience, to make that product set more valuable? Within AT&T, it's our proposition and our belief is that by managing this highly converged, highly scaled network, we have a lot of opportunities to bring something unique to the bear, especially around security solutions. So we've got a lot of things that we're thinking about internally with mobile threat and anomaly detection that we're talking about and building out that customer value proposition. And when you start to put the customer value proposition at the forefront, that's where it becomes even easier to activate those internal channel, or those internal partners, those internal API evangelists across product, across sales, across marketing. Because you're not speaking in technology language, you're speaking in a customer value proposition, which is something that becomes very easy and very straightforward to understand. So on top of that, now that you've established the customer value proposition, now it becomes time to think about, well, what value does the API or the network capability provide back to the business and back to the enterprise? So that's my third lesson, is one business model isn't enough. So spoiler alert, if you're not aware, building networks is really expensive. And when you're building both a multi-gig fiber network and a 5G network, the capital investments there are huge. We cannot afford to pursue only one business model in an attempt to return on that investment, and in an attempt and in that pursuit of monetization. So we need to look across all the different business models and all of the different opportunities that we see evolving and that we see coming up here. So this is where we start to reach out to our channel partners, or in many cases, our channel partners start to reach out to us. We've seen a lot of work and a lot of different activations with the hyperscaler partners. We've got systems integrators, and we see a lot more aggregator models popping up. Even some suppliers are starting to move into the aggregator space as they seek to solve some of these challenges about how do we bring these capabilities to new markets? How do we bring these capabilities to developer communities? Those are the places where we think that those different partners can really help us and can really accelerate our vision there. But within all of that, you have a lot of different potential channel partners to evaluate. So how do you pick the right one? So the fourth lesson, mapping out the value exchange will lead to the right collaborators. We have a number of different models when we talk about monetization. B2B, B2B2C, B2C, B2B to X, B2B to A, B, and the whole alphabet down along the line, which gets very exciting because there are a number of new opportunities. But the more partners that you introduce to that value exchange, the more pressure you're going to put on your margins. So you have to be incredibly intentional that each of those parties involved in that value exchange are bringing something of high value to bear. So this is where within AT&T we use a lot of enterprise architecture principles. We use TM Forum's Open Digital Architecture framework to assess the business capabilities that are needed in that value exchange and identify collaborator partners who excel in those business capabilities. At AT&T, we might not necessarily want to own the front-end developer experience. So we're going to go out and we're going to work with channel partners or third-party partners who are very good at that and let them handle that for us. And we're going to focus on the things that we're really, really good at, which is building out that network and exposing those network capabilities. So now you've got your value prop, you've got your internal ecosystem, you've got your distribution model and your business model. So what do? You have to start somewhere. There's a lot of different ways that this could go. And so when we started this journey, and when I started this journey with this organization at the beginning of this year, really, we had a lot of theories that we wanted to try out, and we weren't really sure kind of where it was going to go or how it was going to work. And so we just had to start somewhere. And so again, through industry forums like the MEF, through industry forums like TM Forum, we find a lot of collaborative and proof of concept type opportunities where we can start to pin these pieces together and start to see what sticks. We see that the industry forums can really help be a complementary add to the execution of our strategy, and in many ways can actually help us accelerate on that strategy by addressing some of these broader questions and helping us solve them. So it's really simple, right? Not so much. We know that there's a lot of complexity in this space, as I've mentioned, and there's a lot that can really get us bogged down. But again, we believe that managing this complexity is made easier by bringing the best minds to the table and by bringing the right collaborators together. And so our theory on network as a service and network monetization is really that progress is going to be iterative. It's probably going to be small in terms of feature enhancements, improving the time to customer onboarding, improving the customer journey, maybe adding some incremental features along the way that are more interesting and that provide more insights, right? But as we do that, as we start to take those small steps, we'll start to get the feedback not only from the customer, but also from our fellow collaborators about what works and what doesn't. And through that iterative approach, some business models are going to rise to the top, some are going to fall away, and other brand new ones will start to emerge. And so if we have that foundation of, again, a highly programmable, open, disaggregated network, if we have a cloud-native technology stack in the middle with modern microservices-based architecture, we'll be ready for that next technology evolution when it comes, and we'll be ready to pursue whatever those use cases or business models that come to us. So thank you so much for listening, and I think we've got Greg to come back out, and we're going to do a little Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. That was really interesting. You mentioned that it's expensive to build networks. I've been a network pricing analyst for 18 years. It's also that prices are always going down for transport. So yes. I think all of us in this room need to be thinking about monetization all the time, right? Yeah. So.
Well, and I think that's where for us it becomes about, I think to some extent NAS in terms of quicker ordering, quicker provisioning, all of that I think is just table stakes, right. Frankly. I think that becomes, we have to do that to suit the customer needs. But where can we start to add value-added capabilities in a way that is unique to the operators and in a way that can't be disintermediated, that can help us preserve those margins as all of that starts to evolve.
Absolutely, and through collaboration like we're doing here. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we heard from some of your AT&T colleagues and others about some of the hurdles with adoption of NAS. I wonder if you could address the work underway at AT&T to solve for modernizing OSS/BSS and creating some actual on-demand network functionality out there in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that we're approaching it within AT&T is that, like we've said, it's not enough to just build out a nice portal where you can have a digital buy flow. If you're not able to automate the provisioning, the turn up, the testing, even some of the dynamic management capabilities, that first user experience is not going to be supported down the line. And so we really have to go all the way down the stack, all the way into the network to understand and enable those types of new models and that type of customer experience and customer journey. So again, we're looking very much at where the MEF APIs fit in, where the TM Forum APIs fit in, and where even some of our third-party sort of leading service provider partners have open APIs or have API stacks or for, again, microservices architecture stacks that we can start to build on top of and transition some of our legacy products to, so that we understand where we're going. The AT&T Internet Air product, our fixed wireless product, is, runs entirely on 5G SA. It also runs on such an architecture stack that is dynamic in that way and more programmable in that way. And so we are making progress and making strides there.
It's interesting you mentioned 5G, because I always think when talking about NAS in general that the end-to-end piece is the ultimate difficulty, right? That the data center, that's there, but end-to-end is the real hurdle, right? So.
Well, and I think we've heard this too from some folks yesterday, that from a consumer perspective and even an enterprise customer perspective, the access type is going to become less and less important. They want connectivity on demand. They want it to work. They want it to be secure. They want it to be reliable. If it's wireless, if it's wireline, if it's Wi-Fi, they don't really care about that.
And they want it spun up immediately. That's
exactly,
it.
Exactly. And so that's, again, where I think where we see AT&T as a converged network operator in that way has a really unique position here to solve some of those bigger challenges in a holistic end-to-end way.
Excellent. All right. So next question is that, sort of parallel to business technology evolution, I think the whole industry is facing these changing customer expectations, right? So they need personalization, they need ubiquity, right? So again, that sort of end-to-end piece. So how is AT&T working to meet these expectations on your path to this network modernization?
Yeah. So within AT&T, as within many enterprises, we have lots of different business verticals, lots of different business units that we pursue. And historically, the technology has been built in a very bespoke way for each of those business verticals, which creates a great deal of redundancy. It creates a great deal of challenges for network integration. And so what we're trying to do at AT&T is figure out what is that reusable platform layer that can exist, that can support multiple different products, multiple different business units. And again, this is where we see kind of the beauty of these industry forum APIs is the standard APIs can be reused, and then within that you have flexibility around the payloads or around the integration or kind of the service integration layer. And so what we're trying to do is come up with that common denominator set of a reusable platform so that we can allow our product development partners within AT&T, as well as product developers outside of AT&T, the ability to accelerate their time to market with new products by building on top of a very consistent and robust core layer.
Right, absolutely. All right, so we're here at MEF collaborating, but there's a lot of this work going on out there in the world. I wonder if you can just share more about what AT&T is doing with some other industry groups, the Linux Foundation, GSMA, TM Forum, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for AT&T, we see the industry groups as being a way for us to accelerate execution on our strategy and as a way to complement the strategy and continue to sort of validate the strategy that we're on within these types of conversations and within these types of discussions. And so we were actually just at the TM Forum event in Copenhagen 2 weeks ago having very similar conversations. And so what we believe and what we would like to see is that these industry groups really start to complement each other in terms of where they sit and where they focus. I think there's a lot of opportunity, again, on MEF because of the specificity of the product payloads, the specificity of the APIs, and really I think the focus on enterprise, that there's a great deal of opportunity for us to use those in a number of ways internally. The TM Forum APIs kind of help us from an architectural layer, from an internal, sort of to what Pascal said yesterday, the northbound, southbound direction. And so being able to sort of navigate those and use those in a way that makes sense for the use case, that makes sense for the business needs, is something that's very valuable for us. So we've been very supportive of and been close followers of a lot of the work around Kamara, which is to define those 5G sort of developer-facing APIs, the GSMA Open Gateway work, which a lot of that has to do with the exposure of those APIs through the third-party channel partners and new distribution models, and then of course, yeah, TM Forum and MEF.
Absolutely. So if we go back to OSS BSS for this last question, I think we have time for one more. What is AT&T doing in relation to the MEF APIs about automating business functions between providers? You were talking about north-south, but east-west as well. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think last night at the Excellence Awards, AT&T took home 2 awards as it related to the LSO and MEF APIs and the Sonata API implementations, specifically for industry and market leadership, as well as just the number of APIs and the implementations. And so we're on track to see 40 suppliers across 49 countries for those APIs by year end, which again, I think is a testament in of itself and is validation of the work that we've been doing and the strategy that we've been on. And so I think where we want to take that is to see where all of that good work exists, how can we continue to scale that? And so how can programs like the LSO Springboard program or kind of complementary programs, even the resources that are available, start to increase the ability of suppliers to adopt the MEF APIs, so it makes it even easier for us to transact and even easier for us in that way to support those. And so wherever we can start to continue to extend that adoption across the industry, we're very happy to see that because we've got a good foundation in place to take advantage of it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we're out of time, so if you have additional questions, we'll be at a break or something.
Absolutely.
That people. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.